because
something,
you folks aren't teaching it?
And that's the thing that disturbs me the most. That you're right. If they mention it, it's only a paragraph or two. And you have to put this into the context of, look what this country has been able to accomplish. We're still a relatively young country. And yet we rose to be, until this latest president, one of the rich, the last two, let's put it that way, the richest country in the world, the most powerful in the country, and by all measures, the freest in the world. And if you don't know what allowed that to happen by keeping government out of the way, what kind of disservice are you doing?
Well, and that's the problem, and that's why we have to continue to do what we do to educate the public through my radio show, through Granite Grok, your blog, and Grok Talk here, and why we need to continue to locate, work with, and knit together groups like the National Heritage Center for the Study
New Hampshire National Heritage Center for Constitutional Studies.
You know why I always screw that up? It's NHCCS,
yes.
and that automatically I default to New Hampshire when it's a National Heritage Center for Constitutional Studies, and all of the so-called issue groups. Okay, whether they're right to life, whether they're free speech groups, whether they're gun groups, whether they're Fourth Amendment groups. I mean, all kinds of, and that's the one thing that's always mystified me about the right is that unlike the left, where it doesn't matter whether they're an abortion interest or a labor union interest or whatnot, they more or less take on every cause of every member of their coalition. The ones on the right tend not to do that.
Well, there's a perfectly good reason for that.
So we end up in these silos, educating people about one part of the picture, but never really building out the rest of the picture.
Yeah, I tend to think.
Am I right about that?
Yes and no. Let me go back to when the New Hampshire Tea Party Coalition first started. For the first time in decades, exactly the opposite happened, where they all bound together to do some stuff. And 2008, 2009, 2010, especially in the election, things went well. Everybody decided we're going to put away all these squabbles. But I understand, again, when Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I'll say it right, woman. Congressman from Florida, also the head of the Democrat National Committee, could not identify, either she can't or she won't, any difference between the Democrats and the Socialists. We already know the default mode is collectivism.
Sure.
All for one.
Resistance is futile.
Yes. You shall be assimilated.
We are the Borg.
Yes. But then you go back to your question is, you're right. The problem is that the right does believe in individualism, rugged individualism, freedom of conscience, and all of that other stuff. And too often we see, well, I'm not going to do it your way anymore. I'm going to go off and do it my way. Why do you think we have so many gun groups in New Hampshire?
There's no sort of unifying thread, and it's a collection of folks who, no matter what the issue is, tend to make the good the perfect the enemy of the good, and that's never a good thing. But
we, you and I, tend to be the butterflies between the flowers, where each of the flowers is each one of these little groups, and we kind of go all around.
And we tend to be attacked by grasshoppers along the way, and that's what we have to try to do. I mean, New Hampshire, I think, really could use an alternative media. I think we need to reinvigorate. I do what I do on my show. You do what you do through your blog. I know we try to cooperate back and forth. Every now and then there's another, outlet here or there that will play a little bit on an issue or two. But what we really haven't seen in the state of New Hampshire is the development of alternative media. And I think one of the reasons for that is, when you have one statewide newspaper, one statewide television station, one statewide radio network, and you really don't have a lot of challenge to that, the infrastructure is I think more than in many places single-handedly controlled by a very small group of people. We're always swimming upstream.
We are the rebellion.
We are the rebellion. That's so true. But I will say this, and I'll draw this to a close on this. I take a look, though, at what happened in 2010 and take a look at what happened in 2014 and take a look at, the caliber of the candidates running for president on the Republican side of the ticket. No matter where you fall on that spectrum, to be able to look up at 17, now 16, whether you like them all or not, you got to give them all their due. They're governors, they're former governors, they're senators, they're former senators, they're current and past tycoons of industry. I mean, there are some.
It's high-powered.
Yeah. You take a look at that, and you take a look at the process that people are going through, particularly here in this state, to really sift it through. I was talking to someone. I was at the Glendy celebration in Manchester yesterday, and I was doing a little campaigning there for my school board bid in the Queen City, and I was talking to some folks, and I was talking to an elderly lady who, wonderfully pleasant girl. I mean, there were some folks from Chris Christie there who said, "Would you like to sign a petition for Chris Christie or get on our mailing list, learn more?" And she's like, "No, there's just too much. I really." Long story short, she was talking to me. She said, "The anxiety for the country was clear." In her voice, in her tone, in her face. She was talking to me about her late husband, who is, quote unquote, just a construction worker and used to work in Boston, and what he used to do to make sure he got back and home just in time to vote before he, and she said, I want to really be careful this time. I want to really make sure that we make the right choice because our country's at stake, she told me. She said, this is our country. And she had to be in her mid to late 80s anyway. I mean, she was an older lady, and she was fearful. And
a lot of us are.
I take a look at what's going on, and I can only hope that those who have taken the time to really sort of educate themselves about the issues, I can only hope that a proper victor will come. I can only hope that whoever's elected will actually do the things that they have at least led us to believe they're going to do to earn our vote.
And that is a $60 million question. Will they do what they promise? I mean, here in New Hampshire, we're a small state. There's a small number of political activists, smaller number of actual politicians. And that's what we key off of. What will they do? It used to be that we'd all say, this is what they say they're going to do. Now we're all getting to the point of what I've been saying the last few years now.
Yep.
It's basically winning is only a precursor.
Right.
It's what you do afterwards that's most important. And can we trust your vote? I don't want to vote for somebody that when they get into their legislative seat or the Oval Office, I have to worry about what they're going to do and how they're going to vote. And the problem is we've had a succession of folks that have made it clear, oh, I'm a constitutionalist. I am for limited government, less money, da-da-da-da-da. I'll point out Frank Ginta lied to me on every single one. Mm-hmm. And then he wonders why he lost when he did. Mm-hmm. I did not go after him this time. Mm-hmm. But I'm not seeing good things again. It's like the problem, and you've opened up a whole nother can of worms because you're seeing those. You point to the polls and you see lots of people hate the Republicans. But what's not always said a lot is that most of those people hating the Republicans
hate the Democrats too.
No, hate the base that hates the Republicans they've elected because they don't do what they say, and that really comes to what you talked about.
And that's why I think that any Republican nominee has got to be one that embraces the base, and that the base will embrace. Do I see the base embracing Jeb Bush? No, and I think you're seeing that in the polls right now. Do I see the base embracing Christie? Maybe more than Bush, but I'm not sure that I see that. Do I see the base embracing Rand Paul? I see some of it, but a lot of Ron Paul's people in this state are with Donald Trump. Some of the big ones too. Like Steve Stepanek out of Amherst. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who, George Lambert out of Litchfield, a lot of people who are solidly Ron Paul are very solidly not Rand. So he picks up part of the base. What's Marco Rubio pull? I don't know. Do I see Santorum or Jindal being able to have the base's support? Enthusiastically, but are they going to be able to get to a point where that matters?
Yeah. And then you've got Ted Cruz, which he's one of the few that actually has done and willing to put his seat on the line, his political future on the line for what he thinks is important.
I'm gonna stop short of agreeing with you only because for two reasons. I really don't know enough about him, and there are pieces of information that have been brought to my attention. Some of his votes in the Senate, some of the places where he didn't stand versus some of the places where he did, that I would think might be red flags and show raise a cautionary tale there. But
Yeah,
again, time will tell.
And you can say that about almost everybody. Unfortunately. I mean, I look at it this way. If I was ever elected to a high office, nobody would ever have to worry how I would vote. I mean, that's the kind of candidate I'm looking for.
Well, I mean...
Because I got 10,000, 12,000 posts behind me that say exactly what I feel.
Exactly. Well, hey, listen, when I decided to run for school board, I created a school board page on my radio show page because everything that I've said is out there, and
you betcha.
I'm there, But, so, and the other thing that I get is that the country... How, low information voter or not, the country, I think, has got a very real, there are counter currents. A big chunk of the country is sensing blood in the water. That would be the left. And they're trying to seal the deal.
Yeah.
But there's, I think, a bigger part of the country that senses, even though they're ill-informed or ill-educated or ignorant, but they sense there's something wrong. They're not sure why. They're not sure why they know that something's wrong. They just know that something is. And the challenge for the Republicans are to be able to crystallize it for them and to show themselves as the answer, which is incredibly difficult for the party when it is at war with itself between the establishment and the base.
Right. You're absolutely right. The biggest problem is to be able to tell people this new normal is not normal. It really isn't.
Indeed, it's not. So that's where we are right now.
Well, I was hoping to talk to you for just a little bit. It's gone more than just a little bit.
Skip, I'm always happy to talk.
Yeah, considering that we had nothing else to do.
I know. Well, I'm going to go sit in on some of those seminars. I want to see what Dr. Paul Jaley has got to say. I'm pretty familiar with Harriet Cady because she's a frequent flyer on my radio show on the Right to Know. And Dr. Vieira, I want to hear what he has to say. I interviewed him. I missed the. I was actually going to pop in and see what this. Catherine White, but my son's in there. He'll give me the rundown.
Well, I'm trying to record that anyway, so
good.
If folks miss it, I'll get at least one of the rooms really, really well. The other one, the little flip cam, yeah. We'll see
what we could do.
This is why I was all set up to broadcast here from the ballroom, and this nice big room, and nobody's talking.
Yeah,
except us.
Well, that's fairly. I mean, this is the second time I've had the honor of being the master of ceremonies, and if I'm not mistaken, they did the same thing up at the Grapponi Center where they had the seminars off in different rooms, and they basically left the ballroom for the main event.
Yeah, and it's like I don't quite understand that. It would have been cheaper. Because hotels don't give time in their rooms away for free.
No, they don't. But no, they don't. But Skip, as always, the pleasure's mine.
Very good, and I want to say thank you, Rich Girard of Girard at Large. And if people want to get a hold of you,
they can find me at girardatlarge.com. There's a contact us page. Just use the drop-down menu. Because the default, I think, is news, so I often get a lot of weird things in my news email. But just use the drop-down menu, go to Rich, and it will get to me.
Very good. And if they want to talk to you about your election attempt for the Manchester School Board,
also can go to girardatlarge.com and reach us through the contact me or contact us page. I do have in the menu of the website a Girard for Manchester School Board at Large thing. Can't miss it. You can click there, see what I'm about, and also reach me through the website.
Excellent, sir. Well, I appreciate you taking some time. Now you can go twiddle your thumb somewhere else.
I'm going to the bar.
All right, take care.
That's where the football game's on.
Yep, and folks, I'm going to go out and see if I can find someone else to go ahead and talk to for a little bit while we're waiting for the main stuff.
Thank you, Skip.
You're welcome. And hopefully we'll be back on the air in just a little bit. In the meantime, we are GraniteRock.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative libertarian blog site, and we will return.
Croc TV.